This is the big picture brought to you by our great friends and partners at Depth, helping fintechs move fast in the mortgage world. And if you're a fintech that needs your story told, depthpr.com, great partners for strategic communication, brand management, public relations services. Carrie Milam, such a fine leader of that organization, her EVPs, Leslie Colley, Lindsay Neal, such a great trio. And if you need your story told, the fine folks at Depth would love to help you do it. And you can find them at depthpr.com or find them on LinkedIn or just find Rob or I. We can connect you with them as well. So that's it. My name is Rich Swerbinsky with Onward and Upward Consulting. And this is the big picture. And as always, pleased to be joined by my esteemed colleague and co-host, Rob Chrisman. Rob, great to see you. How's things?
Good to see you too. Things are cold and foggy here in Northern California. But what's the temperature in Twinsburg, where you are?
Full-blown snowstorm I'm looking at right now. It's on the other side of my window. It isn't like 20 degrees and just snowing very hard. So in Cleveland, yep. So
do you have to draw straws to see who takes the dog out for a walk?
We usually walk in the morning as a team, but it gets a little tougher when it gets this cold. So
this is the part, Rich, where we remind you why us idiots in California do pay the tax rates that we do, because we don't have to do any of that.
The weather tax, exactly. Yeah. Well, good stuff. And that was our guest this week. Really, really pleased to have back on the show, I believe the third or fourth time, one of our favorite guests, because we love just really, people that are outspoken and speak their mind, and also wicked smart. Also, the CEO of NextHome, one of the bigger brokerages, real estate brokerages in America. It is our friend, James Dwiggins. James, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me back. Excited.
All right. And for those, if you could, James, just give our audience a little overview of your company and what they do for those that may not know.
Yeah, so we are a national real estate franchise of about 600 offices across the U.S. We do about $12 billion in volume on an annualized basis. I've been in residential real estate my entire life. I'm third generation. I'm an SOB, son of a broker. So I've been in the business literally. My grandfather started his company in 1967. So I've only lived and breathed the word escrow in my house for the day I was born. So yeah, it's my background.
James, you have one of the more popular podcasts in the real estate. What is your podcast? Give it out to everybody so they can follow it.
Yeah, so we run a podcast called Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered. We have 2 shows we do a week. One is with the top agents and teams around the country, interviewing them on what's happening in their market, how they operate their business. And the second one is a leadership track where we interview the top CEOs of all the residential real estate firms and technology companies across the U.S. So it's also syndicated by Inman News. So it's been fun for us. It's a non-paid job that we do as a benefit for the industry. Been fun though. So,
and we've got some weather taunting in the chat, including Bill Dolly. So, Rob, do you remember the name Bill Dolly? Bill Dolly. So, my friend Claire Barber ran into Bill at an event in Houston yesterday. Claire calls me. She says, "Oh, Bill Dolly's a huge fan of the big picture." He pitched in the MLB for like 8 years in the 80s. Was an all-star as a rookie with the Astros. He's in the real estate industry now, and evidently he's a big fan of the show, and he's in the chat right now. So, Bill, thank you. And Rob, I wanted to bring that up on the show today.
Do you have his card?
I don't have a Bill Dolly rookie card, but I'm gonna have to get one now. Bill, do you have like a PSA 10 version graded of your own rookie card? I would if I played in the MLB. I could tell you that. So, but. Good stuff. Well,
a funny story. I don't know if it's urban myth or not. When the Oakland A's signed Rickey Henderson, they supposedly gave him $1 million bonus check, and time went on, and Rickey was playing for the Oakland A's, and the accounting team noticed that check had never been cashed. And so they went to Rickey's house, and Rickey had taken the check and framed it and put it on his wall.
No. Forgot to cash it first. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of Rickey Henderson stories out there.
Doesn't surprise me.
But that's supposedly one of them.
he was the king of talking about himself in the third person, which,
You know,
special breed, it's like,
one
man,
more quick Ricky story. We'll loop this back into what our topics are today. I do know this for a fact. So a friend of mine was a wealthy friend of a friend was flying first class somewhere in the US, and sitting next to him was Ricky Henderson. And so the friend of a friend knew who Ricky was, of course. And Ricky asked him, hey, what do you do? And the fellow said, oh, I own some apartment buildings. And Ricky said, Ricky's got to get some. Ricky's going to get some of those. Ricky's got to get some of those. That's what Ricky Henderson said. Ricky's got to get some of those apartment buildings. It's like cornflakes at the store or something. Anyway, all right.
Bill Dolly, do you remember Ricky? I'm sure you faced Ricky Henderson a couple of times. I think Bill was in the MLB for like 7 or 8 years. So we're going to run into Ricky. We'll see what Bill comes up with.
So would it be weird if I talked in the third person for the rest of this podcast?
We should do that one episode.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Rob, the Fed, of course, met yesterday. No surprise, largely anticipated 25 basis points, not much of a story there. More broadly, we were talking about this a little bit, pre-show. It's just the affordability narrative really seems to be slipping away from the Trump admin, and housing is right at the center of this. I mean, I am and you know me, I've been very supportive of this administration through all of this, but I call a spade, and I am in disbelief right now that we have not seen anything, not one idea, not one of any significance to help housing affordability. And we are in December. We are now 10 months into the administration, and
some would say 11.
11. Yeah. So I throw that all to you to get the ball rolling here this week.
Well, far be it for me to talk politics on our show. But let's get back to the Fed. You're right. No surprise. And the bigger surprise is, once again, I think I mentioned this in my subject line in my commentary today, Fed cuts and the market interest rates shrug, mortgages shrug. It was already priced in. And if you look at I forget if this was the third or the fourth straight cut that the Federal Reserve has made. And 10-year rates have done very little, 15-year, 30-year rates have done very little, which reminds us that mortgage rates are indeed market driven. It also, though, encourages people out there, potential borrowers, especially those with a lot of equity in their homes who have a lot of credit card debt, to reach out and say, hey, I see the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee lowered rates. Does that mean mortgage rates are lower? And the answer is really no, but it allows those loan officers to have a discussion with that potential borrower, and once again prove that it's good to have a human on the other end of the line who can talk about these things and why mortgage rates haven't moved. But I think, heading into December, I mean, we're almost halfway through December at this point, but it's traditionally a slow time of year, especially on the purchase side, and rates being where they are isn't, as you point out, really helping affordability. And I continue to bring up the fact that affordability is influenced by so many other things rather than just interest rates,
right?
Namely homeowners insurance and condo fees and property taxes. And the list goes on, just how expensive it is. You call a plumber and they're, $150, $200 an hour. And I think there's a portion of the population that's saying that's a lot of expense that I don't necessarily need. I'll just keep renting. And so you look at the various demographics of the renters out there, and the home ownership. I don't know what the current home ownership percentage right now is. I think it hovers around 65 or thereabouts. But really, affordability, yeah, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard. You'd think that perhaps President Trump would appoint some kind of housing czar, some kind of Marshall Plan for. And no, I was not around for the Marshall Plan, Rich. So don't go there.
Yeah, already ready.
To get things back on their feet in Europe, where General Marshall stepped in and he was calling the shot. So we really don't have anybody like that in housing or real estate. And the closest is Bill Pulte running the FHFA. And he has his critics, and he also has his supporters. But you're right, not much has happened there with regard to affordability, and we're kind of wallowing at this point.
Well, also just to add a comment, I mean, with respect, administration doesn't even think there's an affordability problem. I mean, let's just call a spade here. I mean, literally watching people talking about it, the average American can't afford anything anymore, and they're not acknowledging the fact that the economy is having issues. And to your point, I think it's a great comment, Rob. I just had some Nest thermostats installed, and they wanted $400 to install some Nest thermostats, just 2 thermostats in a house, just for AC people to come out. Like the average American, that's adding up to be a lot of money. And so I don't think we're having an honest conversation about how expensive everything is in this country anymore. And I do believe, having with a company that's selling real estate all over the US, this is an issue that's going even beyond just homeowners insurance, which to your point is a massive problem. The everyday costs of every single thing is adding up, and it's going in a big way. And I think people's lack of confidence in the economy is also stopping people, to your point, of making any of those decisions. I think that's a bigger thing that people are not taking into account. So just to add context.
Yeah, but now you balance that again. I know President Trump was in Pennsylvania earlier this week, and he said the economy's great. Never been better, I think he may have said.
A plus, I believe was the exact.
Yeah, and I heard that, and I thought, well, why do we need lower rates if the economy's going great? Rich, you've talked about the economy not being great for a long time now. And at some point, I know there's lots of blame to go around. At some point, somebody will have to stop blaming the previous administration. Certainly, the previous administration has issues and problems.
For sure.
But the economy, I think people, if you look at approval ratings and so forth, things aren't great for the president right now. So yeah, you'd think one of his advisors would say, hey, we need to do something here. But you're right, Rich, the silence is deafening.
Shocking to me because, term 2 versus term 1, he's done so many things different, amending for what he thought were mistakes in the first term. Some of that has worked, some of it maybe not, but in general, it's been a much different administration that has, been acting on things that didn't go great. From the midterms, of course, they lost the first Trump admin, and it is just shocking to me that we are now in December and that we were talking about this 5 months ago, Rob. Remember, it was tax bill, tariffs. And then remember, they put Besant out on the road tour. It was like early September. It was Labor Day weekend. I remember because he did all the Labor Day, and all he talked about was affordability, housing, number 1 priority, rest of the year, housing right at the center of it. And now we're 3.5 months later, and literally nothing's been done. I'm in disbelief.
Yeah, I mean that could change with a tweet in the middle, tonight, right?
Yeah, it could.
I think the big thing to consider is, I travel a lot for keynotes and things around the country, and I was in the Midwest, and the part that's fascinating to me is he's losing his own base right now. So farmers have just gotten destroyed, to be clear, and you've seen these numbers. But I have offices all over there, and you are seeing farmers file for bankruptcy. You're seeing machinery be repossessed. Like, I mean, it is way worse than you are actually seeing on the news, etc. And I think the bailout they're doing is $12 billion, if I have that right. I remember reading that the other day. But the actual loss from tariffs is over $40 billion worth of revenue. And so it is strange to me, Rich. And it's like there's this bubble, but the rest of the world's like, no, it isn't that great. Like, we've got serious problems. And then obviously the Fed yesterday with Powell wasn't exactly very positive about housing affordability. So not adding confidence to that conversation.
The one thing I say is go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was going to say that there is a certain portion of the population that, regardless of who is saying it, they believe what leaders are telling them. And so it's perhaps an issue, almost schizophrenic, to have President Trump talking about the great economy and having it not really be the case. Every farmer that I've known, in fact, I come from somewhat of an ag background, they would rather work than get a
100%.
than get a handout.
Yep.
And so now we have the taxpayers paying. Well, anyway, this is a mortgage show and a real estate show.
But
So
it's kind of tied, but yeah.
Stop.
Be interesting because housing is right at the center of the affordability issue as much as anything. Affordability is the number one issue right now for voters and Americans. So we'll see how it all plays out. The one thing I did notice yesterday, the one person that Trump is afraid of is his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who is known to be relentless and highly effective. And she was out yesterday talking about how he has got to change the narrative. And, and so when I hadn't seen her speak in some time, so maybe, he's getting the message from the right people and we'll see something, but we'll see. So,
maybe there'll be maybe a change will be made and we'll have a huge groundswell leading into the next election set in November. Maybe that's the plan.
James, I haven't pitched the Swerbinsky plan to James yet. To me, this makes all the sense. I've been pitching this for literally 10 years on LinkedIn. Capital gains tax reduction or waiver if for non-owner occupied houses sold to owner occupants, not corporations. You got to own 10 or less. If you sell your investment property to an owner occupant, we will waive or reduce capital gains. To me, it puts affordable inventory on the market. It reduces the percentage of investor holdings. To me, and I think it accomplishes a lot of things. And I'm shocked it hasn't been talked about more.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think you would also agree that is also part of a band-aid to a fundamental problem of we're not building enough housing still. But I think you need to get creative with stuff like that. 100%. I read yesterday, I don't know where it was, I saw it, but what percentage of properties now are owned by large investment firms? It was some crazy number, like 10% or something like that. So, we've got people in America, as I understand it, and that's our bread and butter. It's just helping people own and buy real estate, right? They want a roof over their head to build a family, celebrate memories, etc. And that's part of what we've had as this whole country. And it is so far out of reach where the average age of a home buyer now is above 40 years old for first-time home buyer. That should be a massive red flag, like a huge red flag of we are going completely the wrong direction where it's just a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots. And I just don't see how that's a positive for the U.S. long term.
I agree. Well, James, we'd love to get your takes on just the real estate side of the business. We're going to get into the mortgage, real estate, intertwined sides of it in a little, but a lot of big news as of late that we'd love to get your takes on. I mean, the most recent is that the NAR, I guess, referral fee transparency debate. I'll avoid butchering this and just let you explain kind of what happened for those that didn't know and any thoughts you have on it.
It's the short version, to summarize without taking up all the time, is the idea was to create transparency of all fees that are paid to an agent, essentially. So referral fees, if you're paying a referral fee out to Zillow or it's going to another colleague, like those are disclosed to consumers so they understand where and how agents are being compensated. That was proposed by NAR's executive committee. It got approved to make the change to Article 6 so that this was essentially what needed to be done. And then it would filter down, to be clear, those changes would then filter down through the state and local associations. It got approved by the board of directors, and then it went to the delegate body. And then in the delegate body's incredible wisdom, they decided to vote it down. And that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for companies like mine and others because the rules that NAR creates end up causing legal liability for large companies, right? We just went through this with the litigation of Burnett Sitzer and all that other stuff that happened. So, it's become a real hot button issue. And so you've seen companies like EXP come out and say, well, screw the associations. We're just going to build our own forms and disclosures. And the problem with that is you create, people are like, so no big deal, the brokerage can do their own thing. And yeah, but then you're creating lots of variations of documents versus more of a standardized protocol. You know, like the state of Washington, for example, is very good about creating material with the local association and becomes a state mandated form. Everybody's working off the same sheet of paper, the state's involved. I believe that's really how things should continue, so that we're following some sort of standardized process. But the issue fundamentally, and I'll leave it with this, is the governance setup of NAR is flawed. It has to change. Like I mentioned in the green room, we just did a podcast with the chief legal counsel for NAR on this very issue. You can't have volunteers sitting in positions that are unqualified to vote on things they do not understand. I'm not referring to all of them, so I'm not pissing everybody off here. There are really qualified people, but the governance structure of NAR is too big. There's too many people in the room making decisions. And my opinion is any decision that can have legal repercussion needs to be shrunk down to a finite group of people: large brokers or counsel, general counsel for NAR, antitrust counsel, to make sure that the decisions aren't causing antitrust issues, who are essentially the group that's going to take on the responsibility or legal repercussions from these decisions. And you remove all the volunteers out of that process. It just can't be. And or they are highly qualified to be in that room. So the problem with NAR governance is the amount of committees, and there is no qualification process. You've got people who are friends of the president or whatever being put on committees, who read the notes the morning of that they, woke up, they got to their meeting, they don't read half the shit, and then they vote and they don't understand what they're voting on. And that's not entirely their fault, but this is a major issue. It's relevant, I'm going to tie it back now, to the litigation going on with Zillow. And this litigation that's recently happened, where you've seen plaintiffs come out and say they didn't understand how agents were compensated, that Zillow was making a 40% referral fee, that agents were charging more because they're giving out more money to Zillow. They're incentivized to do that. And then Zillow is tying, they're pushing or incentivizing agents to push Zillow home loans. And so now you've seen an amended case with RICO charges and everything else. This is a real problem, by the way. Like, this is a real problem. And I know the executive team at Zillow really well. They've got smart counsel there, but there's a real issue here. And I think this is going to get a lot bigger headlines than it already has, because of some of the things that are the allegations that are being stated, which I've honestly heard them myself, where if the agent doesn't have a certain attach rate to enough of Zillow home loans, that they will not receive leads. They reduce the number of leads you receive. We all know that that's an issue. And I think that case will get settled out for a large chunk of money. But here's the wild card, though. This is the part no one's talking about. I'm not saying anything the lawyers haven't already thought of, by the way. They're not dumb. All these agents who've been doing this, there's a question of whether they violated their fiduciary duty in doing that. And I think you could see plaintiffs loop in a lot of other organizations into that case. And then the real question is, does Zillow indemnify those brokerages and agents from that litigation?
Interesting. This is The Big Picture, presented and sponsored by our great friends at Depth. Nearly 20 years of serving the mortgage and fintech industries, brand management, strategic communication, and public relations services, depthpr.com. And James, that all hits at the core of something we've been talking about on the show for a while, that I never the mortgage industry right now is kind of the Wild West from a regulatory standpoint. The CFPB has been evaporated. Now some of these blue states are starting to coordinate together. They just hired Rohit Chopra, the former CFPB director, to help them. But it's like this combination of, like, independent mortgage banks have gone from like 30% market share to 83% market share. They're all really struggling to make money for years now. So that financial pressure, coupled with what they view as less regulatory pressure, and it's kind of crazy what's going on right now. But in mortgage, and it sounds like that's at the heart of, the two stories you just alluded to as well on the real estate side.
It is. And, it's feels almost a little bit like lead up to 2008 again. Like I kind of feel those same vibes again, where I'm going,
elements, yeah.
you get to do whatever the hell you want. And you know, I'm not a big regulatory guy, but I'm also very aware of what happens when you let everybody do whatever the hell they want. Because I remember 2008. I remember when that happened. I remember when it all started. So, you know, it is interesting. Our industry, I think, it's a harder thing to do because the realtor organization is a volunteer organization. You know, it's an association, right? It has controls, but the regulations are done by state. You get your license through the state, right? So this NAR is kind of this overarching organization to help set the tone of things. But really, at the end of the day, the state regulates stuff. And depending upon that state, it's either really well done. Great example would be the state of Washington, or really poorly done. Great example is the state of California. And so it's kind of a mishmash of everything. But we all know how this game plays. When the market shrinks and there's not enough business to go around, and there's too many damn people with licenses, both on the mortgage side or real estate side, and brokerage margins are shrinking, and portals are trying to get their take, and everyone's fighting for the same 4,000 transactions or 4 million transactions, like, everybody gets really aggressive. Our industry, I think, is at a very significant cusp of change. And I think that's from a legal perspective. We've had litigation that obviously, you know, came through with cooperative compensation, essentially, you know, predetermining an amount you offer the buyer brokerage before they write an offer. You've got what I think is coming. What I know it's coming, because I've talked to the plaintiffs' lawyers on this, is you're going to see more class action litigation for all of these idiots that are running around doing private listings. And the company's pushing that. That's a slam dunk lawsuit that they will absolutely win. I've talked to plaintiffs' counsel. They're like, yeah, we're going to sue the shit out of your industry for it. The only reason we haven't done it yet is the class isn't big enough. So we're just going to let you all continue to do that nonsense until it's a big enough class. And then we'll come back and sue every brokerage for not disclosing the fact that properties sell for less when they're not on the MLS. They didn't get market exposure. You double-ended the deal, which you had incentive to do. See the case? It's really easy to do this case. But our industry doesn't learn. So I think you're going to see the next 5 years, I think you're going to be very hard for our industry still. It continues to not get out of its own way. And, you know, now you're seeing this tie-in of portals and referral fees. And there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions there. And so it's going to be interesting to watch. And I think the big one that no one's talking about is, you know, how AI affects some of this stuff. I mean, mortgage, you guys are having this discussion way more than I think residential real estate is. AI is absolutely going to impact the mortgage industry far more than it will impact residential real estate, because the agent is much more of a therapist in the process, and that's very hard to AI out of that equation. But it's coming. There's a lot of stuff that's going to get removed from the realtor too, and so margin pressure is going to be a real thing over the next 5 years as well. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of crossover.
AI has certainly leapfrogged some of the regulations and so forth. And the question on the mortgage side is, should an AI loan officer be licensed? I mean, how does that even work? You know,
I mean, but the interesting part is, so I'll share this with you. I was at a seminar 2 months ago with the top AI strategist in the world. Name is Steve Brown. You can look him up. You can read his book. Just came out. It's amazing. It was so enlightening and absolutely frightened the hell out of me. That 6 hours for me was, I went from like excited about the fact that artificial intelligence will get so smart that it will be smarter than us, which is where I'm going with that, Robert. It will be able to do things at a level that human intelligence cannot. We'll literally be able to create vaccines for your specific DNA and solve any medical issue that you will have. That will be here within probably 10 to 15 years. And at the same time, it could be Terminator. Like, I mean, there's a company called Figure. Have you ever seen this company? Look up a company called Figure. It's a robotics company that is the best of any of them out there right now. They're worth $37 billion. And the estimation from the AI strategists that won't, you know, they're not sharing all this stuff publicly, is 10 billion robots in 10 years is the plan.
Wow.
And the effects of that will be so far reaching and so severe. And not his keynote, when I was talking to him over lunch privately, he's like, universal basic income is a conversation we're going to be having a lot more of in the next 5 to 10 years.
Hopefully they're all building homes. my only hope that nightmare scenario.
My only point is to your comment, Robert, is the reality is that if we continue down the path we're going with artificial intelligence, it will become so smart that it can do a job better than a human can, which is also scary. Like, I fear for my 4-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
James,
so,
also,
I don't know.
The consolidation in both of our sides of real estate as well, in the mortgage industry, been chronicling this through LinkedIn posts, looking at public data. I mean, it is crazy how quick these big lenders are growing. Not surprisingly, but just to see it month by month is pretty interesting. Of course, on your side of the fence, Compass, a huge acquisition. The top two, essentially, joining forces. Compass acquiring Anywhere, the parent company is Century 21, Caldwell Banker. Your thoughts on just the consolidation that we've seen in real estate and real estate finance?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest thing you'll see in our industry, and the repercussions of it will be far-reaching. So Robert has been, the CEO of Compass, has been on a path about private listings for a long time. Acquiring Anywhere, which is 6 different real estate brands, gives him roughly 20% market share of the US. They're massive. And what I think you're going to see start to happen almost immediately, and I know this is happening because it's conversations that all of us large CEOs are having, is you're going to see massive consolidation, because the only way you compete with that is to get big. To stop a private listings war, you got to get big. My projections are you'll see 3 companies emerge in the next 36 to 48 months that will control 60% of residential real estate. I think EXP is one of them. They're worth 1.7 billion. They've got a lot of cash. They're growing pretty significantly. You've got Keller Williams that was bought by Stone Point Capital. They've got private equity money. We all know Berkshire Hathaway is up for sale and has been for some time. Remax is up for sale. Everybody knows that too. Those two will get knocked out by the others, and these companies will grab the messy middle and get big really fast. That is going to be very hard for small independent shops to compete with. Buyers agents flock to one of the big companies that has inventory to sell. The MLS, unfortunately, gets massively consolidated and or destroyed over the course of time. Long term, you see a new MLS emerge that's controlled by the 3 largest or 4 largest companies that all the independents left join to fight to not have antitrust issues. And you get a massive reshaping of the industry. I don't believe that path I just said is not going to not happen now. I think that is 100% on its direction. And you're seeing a massive fight between Compass and Zillow. That's the other thing that we're waiting on. The feedback from the judge, or the judge's decision on the injunction. For context for people, Zillow and Compass are fighting. Compass wants to do private listings. Zillow says you can't do them unless they're on my website. So Zillow created a rule that said if you do a private listing and you market it publicly, we're going to ban it from our website. No seller that I know on planet Earth wants to be banned from Zillow. That hurts Compass's business model. So they're in a massive litigation. And this past 2 weeks, they were fighting in court on an injunction to stop that ban. But Robert's on a quest. Like, he wants to use that private listing network to gain market share, to grow his business, give his agents a distinct advantage. And all the companies will respond in kind. So it is a very interesting time in our space. I do think consolidation will be significant. I think it reshapes the whole industry. I mean, you're watching that happen with, you've got Rocket buying people, you've got Bayview buying people. I mean, you've got companies moving all over, the lower buying Movado. Like, you're seeing this consolidation, and you're seeing the exact same thing on this side of the space. But what will be interesting is, as the big real estate companies get bigger and like really big, it will be interesting to watch how they play in the mortgage space or tie ancillary services to their business as well, because they're not going to sit there and just take mortgage coming into residential real estate. There's no way. So I think you're going to see some really interesting moves. I'll leave you with this though. Here's the one that no one's talking about. So this will be the gossipy one for you. Everyone is really underestimating what Zillow will do in residential real estate if they get backed into a corner. Here's the corner. If you followed all their documentation, if they get to a loss of 20% of listing inventory, then they execute on one of their playbooks. And I think one of the playbooks is they're going, you know what? We're tired of this shit. And y'all are like trying to mess with us too much in our business. So we don't want to be a brokerage, but we have the largest amount of traffic of any real estate site in the world. and no one's going to catch us. CoStar can spend all the money it wants, and Andy can do what he wants, and I love Andy as a friend, but they're never going to catch him. They're so far along in traffic that they own the residential real estate search space. So what happens if Zillow starts to lose listing inventory to generate leads, to generate revenue? Well, here's the playbook. They go, okay, we've not been a brokerage. We act quasi-brokerage to collect referral fees, but since we're sick of this crap, we're going to tell every single agent who receives leads from us, you have 30 days to move your license. You will become a Zillow agent. You will put our yard sign in the ground. And I can tell you, because I've interviewed almost every top team in the United States, they're on my podcast, they get a significant portion of their business from Zillow. If the equation was stay at Coldwell Banker and you lose all of our Zillow business, or go to Zillow and you keep all those Zillow leads, you think the agents will stay at Coldwell Banker? No freaking way. They will absolutely leave instantly. And what Zillow does is it strips down every major brokerage and franchise in the US of their top producing people. They all go to Zillow. They get the listing inventory back. They've got the consumer traffic. And now they literally are the largest real estate brokerage in the US. And they do that in months, just like that. Or they deploy the $1.5 billion worth of capital, which no one has that kind of capital in residential real estate. Compass has got $100 million left. They don't have that kind of money. And they buy a bunch of firms. But they're not going to sit there and take this. They will absolutely make big decisions if they need to own the space. Now, imagine if Zillow had every top team and every top realtor as a Zillow agent with that web traffic.
Yeah, I'm going to go make myself a drink real quick, actually, if you don't mind here.
Now, the counter is, this is the part to remember, Zillow's market cap is based upon a tech company valuation.
Mm-hmm.
If they went that way, it would destroy their stock price, maybe short term, but that would be a last decision. But I guarantee you, Rich and Lloyd and that management team on a whiteboard somewhere has that exact playbook already planned out and has for years if they needed to. So even though this war is going on, what the industry doesn't understand, and I say this all the time, is this Compass and Anywhere can do whatever they want, but they're a tiny player in this game. They're a pawn. If Zillow wants to play it on a big scale, they will win on a big scale. They have the cash to do it, and they've got the eyeballs to do it. And you want to talk about reshaping residential real estate and mortgage? Imagine if they had that network of people.
Yeah, there's been some rumors too, that they've been sniffing around Loan Depot, PHH, some other big public mortgage companies that are out there. So I've been predicting all year that they're going to make some kind of major acquisition, do something major this year, but we're kind of running out of time. But I am with you. Like, feels like something is looming there. So, James, you talk. Oh, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I was going to say maybe they'll buy United Wholesale and allow Matt to focus on the Phoenix Suns.
They need a lot of help right now, honestly. So, James, you talked to obviously a ton of real estate agents. What are they telling you about the mortgage side right now? Like, what do you guys wish lenders would understand better?
The hard part that we're facing is helping consumers understand that rates are actually really, really quite good. Historically, they're not bad. Like, you just need to go back in time to have a concept to it. I mean, I remember when interest rates were 12 to 18%. Mm-hmm. Like, I was alive at that time frame when my parents, like, it was that was tough. So I think there's a little bit of that. We obviously have the lock-in effect of people with low rates, which makes it difficult. The biggest thing I hear on the ground right now is there's a lot of fear about Rocket. That's definitely a conversation. Rockets move into the space. Rockets move on their end-to-end ecosystem, wanting to maintain that relationship with the acquisition of Mr. Cooper. That's certainly front and center. Zillow's building a similar thing. So is ICE, for that matter. There's those conversations. But the truth is, agents are they are hearing, it goes back to our original conversation. The general feedback is our government as a whole is not understanding Main Street, and Main Street is feeling the pinch in everything from food prices to every single detail. And if there is not consumer confidence, which I think everybody could agree it's pretty damn low right now, that people just don't make big decisions. And as soon as you start to create consumer confidence, some of these things become less emotional and we can deal with some of the, the main metrics of this all. But across the US, the general feedback from, my 6,000 agents who are in every market across the US is mortgage rates are still high, although they're really not. We're trying to educate people on that. But the general feedback is consumer confidence is incredibly low. And that shows up in every single poll. As we said, to be clear, I'm independent voter. I hate both parties. So, but I'm rooting for the administration to win, because if we can get the economy back, then we're there. But I think this administration is completely out of touch with reality at this point. Until they start getting back in touch with what's going on, I am not as big of a I am not as optimistic about 2026 as a lot of my colleagues are. First of all, I've been optimistic every single year since 2023, and that's failed miserably. So I'm just maybe trying to be a little more reserved about it. But I'm not seeing the things that cause real estate to make a big recovery next year. I'm feeling less optimistic about that. I wish I could say otherwise. So,
James, the NAR class action lawsuit settlement now from last year. I remember we had you on right after it, and you remember at the time you said it's not going to be as big of a deal as everybody think it has been. Has it kind of played out that way?
Literally.
Like,
yeah. No, it's a one prediction I got right. The changes didn't get if they didn't get the changes in that would have made the big things they were looking for. It's like cooperative compensation being allowed was the thing that destroyed any change. This was never about change. It was about lawyers making a bunch of money, period. But no, it hasn't. In fact, if anything, agent rates have gone up. Survey just came out. Buyer agents are charging more than they were previously. So are listing agents, especially if they separate compensation. There are changes, and certainly there are some good changes that came out of it. But overall, the industry is a lot of the brokerages are less wealthy. I can speak to the fact I've had millions of dollars of legal fees and settlements. That's been really tough and takes out of your cash flow for growth. But overall, not a massive shift. The industry moved forward. But like I said, I don't think we're done. I think you're going to see a lot more coming over the course of time. So
you guys are still.
Hey, James, I had a question. When you ask the, and I've never asked the average person this, but I would assume if you ask the average person, give me the demographics of the average realtor, you're probably going to hear, 68 years old, white hair, driving a Range Rover, does one deal. Has that changed at all, or is there a shift toward younger agents, real estate agents?
No, it's high 50s age, female, roughly 60%. 70% of agents last year didn't even close one deal. Now remember, I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole. Everyone's like, oh, industry consolidation, agents are going to go away. There's not enough deals. I'm like, no, it's not how that works. It only takes one deal for an agent to make money and cover all of their MLS fees and association fees. So that group of contingents is always going to be there. 87% of all agents come in. 87% of all agents that come into the business are gone in 5 years. So only 13% make it. So there's always this rotation of people coming in and out. And that fluctuates based upon how good the economy is. But you are seeing more and more deals going up into the top percentage, especially teams, which are operating as a brokerage within a brokerage. That is continuing to consolidate. But the age of an agent has gone up, and it's really simple. It's really simple, Rob. It is expensive. You got to have the determination to make it work. There's no guaranteed salary. Students are coming out of school with massive debt. Like same conversation we're just having. You got to be able to have some money saved up to get into this business now. That's driving out younger demographic into the space. And so, it's harder. What I will tell you is you'll see that the age is higher, but the people coming in are typically like firefighters or military that already have pension plans. They've been in the military for 20 years. They're now coming in with this as a second career, and they've got the money to be able to sustain, coming into the space and doing the hard work. So there are real issues for agents to come in at a younger age because of student debt and everything else. It's tough. Yep.
Well, great stuff as always, James. Really appreciated you having me on the show and making some time for us this week. Great conversation as always, and thank you for making the time for us.
Appreciate you guys having me on again.
And to all of our listeners and viewers, I want to thank you guys for spending part of your Thursday with us. If you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube, we do the show live every Thursday. 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to ChrismanCommentary.com to get signed up for that. I want to thank my esteemed colleague and co-host, Rob. You just on the home front until the holidays, Rob?
Yeah, no, I don't have any air travel for quite a while.
Some good granddaughter time and just chill out time. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff. But thanks again, James. Have a great rest
Appreciate it.
of the week, everyone. We'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks.